I tried staying with my mom for a little bit, but there was no food in the house most of the times. So I then decided to go and stay with my brother. The only problem now that I was facing is that my brother was a man who was a married man, and the woman to whom he had gotten married to, between me and his wife, there was a problem because when he had gotten married to his wife, there was a little bit of a challenge that was happening there because my brother, when he had gotten married to his wife, my brother was working in the city. So she didn't. So I tried to tell him that the character of the woman that he was trying to get married to, it was not a good character because this woman, she had even dated one of my friends. That guy was an older guy and they had been sleeping around. So when I tried to tell my brother about all of these things, my brother then went and he then told his girlfriend, who later became his wife. So my brother's wife, she then hated me a lot, and when she heard that I was now coming to stay with them, since when I was in South Africa, life had been very difficult for me, and now I had returned back home. And now, Brother Nashi, the problem is that when you are in South Africa, you can think that you can return back home and start your life again. But by the time that you return back home, you are going to find it very tough. Everything just move very quickly and everyone is just hustling. Because when you are in South Africa, you know that if you are working, even if your salary is not a lot, but at the end of the month, you are going to get something and you'll be able to survive. But when you are in Zim, everything is just different. There is no one that you can approach that is willing to assist you. You have to hustle for yourself. And as for me, I had no money at all and I had no capital. I was just someone who was stuck, just moving from one place to another. When I was staying with my elder brother, seeing that the woman whom he had gotten married to, she didn't like me at all, I then chose that it was far much better to go to the nearest town, which was Gweru. When I arrived in Gweru, I didn't have anything, Brother Nashi. I then started hustling, but life was very hard. I would sleep in the taxi rank, and when I was in that taxi rank, that was when I met this other man as we were sleeping at night, and he gave me an idea. He said, why don't you go to this other car wash and work there? After they have given you just the money that they would have given you, then you will start using that money to hustle. He said that if you can buy, there is this thing in South Africa, they used to call it cool time, but here in Zim, they call it freeze it. So this cool time, it is a juice that you sell when it is frozen. So after I had gone to that car wash and after working for a few days and I had gotten some money to start off my small business, that was when I started selling those frozen juices until I was able to look for accommodation just close to that taxi rank. So at the place where I had gotten my accommodation, there was this other old man. He was quite an old man, a very old man. So me and him, we were almost in the same business, but on the side, this man, he will be selling donuts. There are those cream donuts that are sold here in Zim. The man, as we will be busy going around just selling in the taxi rank, he then started telling me a lot about his life, and he told me that when he had arrived in Zim from Mozambique, when he was still a young man, he had some charms that he had gotten back from Mozambique, and these charms, he used to use them a lot because he was a fan of horse betting. He would be telling me that when he was doing all of these horse bettings over the weekends, he was making a lot of money. Then he said that the only problem that stopped him from him becoming a millionaire, it was because of women. He said that he loved women a lot. After winning anything, after horse betting, then he will spend the money on prostitutes and a lot of women that he was dating. So then this older man, as he kept on telling me about his past life, that was when I asked him if it was possible for me to get that same charm that he had gotten from Mozambique after he had arrived in Zim. the one that he claimed to be a lucky charm. Then this man said that it was going to be very hard for him to go back to Mozambique, because ever since he had came to Zim, he had never returned back to Mozambique, and he had gotten this lucky charm whilst he was still there in Mozambique. And the way that he had told me is that when he had came to Zim, maybe he was somewhere around 19 years, and this man that I was speaking with, he didn't even know how old he was. And judging from someone who had arrived in Zim when he was 18 years, and at that time maybe this old man, he was somewhere around 55 to 58. So ever since he had came to Zim, he had never returned back to Mozambique. So he said that this lucky charm, for me to get it, it was going to be very difficult, because as for him, he had even forgotten from where he came from there in Mozambique. But he said that he would try to make a plan for me. And when he had said that it was going to be very difficult for me to get that same lucky charm that was in form of snake oil, I then just said that this is very hopeless. But still, me and this guy, we remained very good friends, so much that when we would be walking, a lot of people started thinking that this man was my father, because he kept on addressing me as if I was his son. By the time that this man passed away, there was no one who knew any of his relatives. So the landlord at the place where I was staying then said that we just had to take that position to be his relatives. So after the coffin had been bought, a funeral was held. Then we took that man to the burial ground and we buried him. But at the time when this man had started getting really sick, I still remember sitting with him in the room where he was renting. He then told me that he wanted to give me some of his items before he could die. At that time, he said that these items that he had given me, there was one of his relatives that was going to come and collect the clothes that he wanted to give me. And at that time, I thought that maybe today or tomorrow, that relative of his was going to come and collect that small bag that had some of his few items. So when he was still alive, this older man, I had never even bothered to open it up. But after he had died, I stayed for a very long time, Brother Nashi. I then decided to open up that small bag, seeing that there was no one that was coming to collect this bag. So one day, Brother Nashi, when I had opened up that small bag, that was when I saw that there was a very small bottle. And when I looked at that bottle, I saw that inside that small bottle there was oil, the oil that was thick. This oil, Brother Nashi, it was red in color, but not dark red. It was just light red in color. So I then took that small bottle and I started using it, because I had remembered the way that I was supposed to use that oil, like that older man used to teach me. I can say that from the very first day that I used that oil, I didn't even know what it was all about. I was just suspicious that maybe it was one of those lucky charms that this man he had taught me about. After I had started using this lucky charm oil in my dream, that was when I saw a snake. This snake, Brother Nashi, that I saw, it just appeared, and this snake, it just appeared in front of me. I was walking in something that looked like a city, but this city, it was like a city that had been abandoned a long time ago. It was very different from a city that we know. This city, it was like an old city, almost in the middle of the forest. Then that snake appeared to me, and after the snake had appeared to me, then the snake started speaking with me, and I was really surprised as to how could it be that this snake could communicate with me in such a way. But this snake, my brother, as it was busy communicating with me, it was communicating with me with a language that I could not even recognize or could even understand. But the more that it spoke with me, I started to notice that I was now able to understand the language that was being spoken by that snake. It then started telling me all the things that I was supposed to do. It told me that if I wanted money, what I had to do, I had to return back home, like back to the rural areas where I came from. After I had returned back home, I had to go to my father's grave, and after I had gone to my father's grave, I had to take some soil from my father's grave, and after taking that soil from my father's grave, then I had to bath myself. This I had to do for days. This is what the snake had told me. It had told me that for 7 days I was supposed to bath with water. The water that I was supposed to bath with, it was the water that contained the soil that I had taken from my father's grave and my brother. I then went to the village pretending as if I had just paid my mom, who was still alive at that time, a visit. I then went to my father's grave. I sneaked out of the house without anyone's knowledge. This I did in the middle of the night, and I went to the place where we buried my father. Then when I had arrived at my father's grave place, when I had arrived at my father's grave, I then took soil from my father's grave. Then I started bathing myself with that soil. But I didn't start bathing myself when I was still in the village. I only started bathing myself from the moment that I had arrived back in Gweru. That was the town that I was staying in. When I started bathing, Brother Nashi, let me say that a lot of people then started coming to me, offering me a lot of business ventures. But when I was traveling from the village going to Gweru, when I had that soil that I had gotten from my father's grave, I think that I kept on hearing this sound. You know, a snake always makes this hissing sound. So when I was in the car that I was traveling in from the village going to Gweru, that was when I kept on hearing a hissing sound, even though I didn't know where this hissing sound from. But after the whole thing, when I had arrived in Gweru, there was this small bag that I had. This small bag, there was some food that he had been given to me by my elder brother, since he knew that I was someone who was just hustling and struggling. So he had given me some ground nuts and a little bit of food. When I picked up that bag that I had gotten from my elder brother, I felt that it was very heavy. I said maybe it was only heavy because of the ground nuts and the food that had been given to me by my elder brother. So I walked quickly going to the place where I was staying, since I was just staying close to the taxi rank. And when I had gotten inside the house, I quickly opened the bag, because the way that this bag was now heavy, it was no longer normal. It was really difficult to carry. Brother Nashi, when I had opened up that bag, I saw that there was a big snake inside. This snake, when I saw it inside that bag, I thought that it was going to attack me, and there was no food inside that bag. All the ground nuts and the few food that had been packed by my elder brother when I was in the village for me, that snake had eaten everything. It was only the snake that was inside that bag. So I was fearful of that snake, thinking that it was going to attack me. But this snake did not even attack me. It just looked at me, then the snake just disappeared. Regularly, what would happen is that I would notice that when I was about to leave the house, I will see something that looked like a tail of a snake. Sometimes I'll see that this snake will be underneath this other makeshift bed that I had when I was still renting at that place close to that taxi rank. Then the snake will just disappear. When I would try to look underneath the bed, I will not find anything. I will only see that tail of that snake, but I will never be able to see the head of that snake. There were times when I will see the snake inside my house just hanging somewhere on the walls of that room that I was staying, or sometimes when a window would be opened, I'll see that there will be a snake that will be getting into my room, and when I will try to search for that snake, I will never be able to see where that snake had gone to. So what started happening is that as I'll be busy selling at the taxi rank, I'll just look around, then I'll see that there will be a snake that will be looking at me. The more that I kept on seeing this snake, the more that I kept on making a lot of money. I would come back home, and when I'll start counting the money, I don't know how to explain this to you. Like in the business that I was doing, the profit was not a lot. If I would manage to sell something like $10 a day, then I would say thank you God, because it would have been a very good day. But now, after I had used that snake oil charm that had been left behind by that man who was from Mozambique after he had passed away, I started noticing that yes, indeed, throughout the day, I'll sell something like only $5 or sometimes I'll sell something like $10. And as I'll be counting that money, Brother Nashi, you will keep on counting that money until the money will be somewhere around $1,000. I don't know how to explain such magic that in your pocket you'll be having $10, but when you start counting the money will keep on multiplying until the money will be somewhere around $1,000, and on some days the money would even be $2,000. I made so much money, Brother Nashi. That was when I joined this housing cooperative. After I had joined that housing cooperative, simply because I had all of this magic money, within a short period of time, I had managed to settle the amount that was needed by that housing cooperative. Then I started with my building project. Everyone who was in that same housing cooperative, they still do not even understand as to how I quickly managed to build my house. They think that maybe I was into gold dealing. Everyone just thinks that I am a gold buyer. I quickly managed to build my house, but even up until today, most of the people that are in that same housing cooperative that I joined after I started using that snake that brings money to me, they are even struggling to get their housing plans approved by the city council. But because I was getting a lot of money, I was then able to quickly run to the council, then have my housing plans approved. Then I started building my house. This was my first house, my brother. Even though it was my first house, but I then started buying several properties, first in Gweru, then I then started buying houses in Harare, not yet in Bulawayo, even though I have future plans to start buying properties in Bulawayo as well, because the money that kept on flowing in, it was quite a lot. I didn't even know what to do with it anymore. My brother, with all of these properties that I have in Gweru and in Harare, this is what the snake told me. It told me that I am not allowed to go and stay at any of the properties that I bought, but I am only supposed to stay in that first house that I bought. Now, what happens is that the properties that I have here in Gweru and in Harare, I then placed some tenants there so that I can earn a little bit of money. But there is always a complaint that I receive from my tenants. And what usually happens is that if someone stays at my property for more than 4 months, that is when they will start to be troubled by this snake. They will keep on seeing this snake until they will think of moving out. This snake does not bite anyone, but you keep on seeing this snake, and sometimes you can see this snake in your bedroom, sometimes you can see this snake just outside. But what troubles a lot of my tenants is that whenever they see this snake, even if they try to hire people that are called snake catchers, but they cannot find the snake that they would have clearly seen. Yes, you can see the snake, but the moment that you look to the side, then the snake, no matter how hard you would have tried to corner it, it will just disappear. My brother, when I used this Lucky Charm oil, there was no traditional healer that I visited. I only did all of these things on my own, and I do not even know what is going to happen after me using all of these Lucky Charm oils, because the only man who was the owner of that small bottle that contained the snake oil, like he told me, that man has since passed away. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received. Then we had to give you this translation to bath yourself with soil that you would have taken from your father's grave.